Welcome to Haig's Business Winners, a club that brings together leaders, industry experts, entrepreneurs, startups, and those willing to share their business experiences and learn from others. Just like my podcast, Other Side of the Business Card, we explore business conversations with humanity, humor, and passion. Listen in as we uplift, motivate, and learn from each other. Welcome to Haig's Business Winners. We're live from our studio in Marylebone in London again, as we are every week. I am excited to have a rock star Dave here, who's one of my marketing gurus that I've worked with over the years, and he's done an amazing job. And we really wanted to get a feel and a pulse on how marketing has changed. He's had pretty much every role that you would have in a small and large agency, going up to creative director. So I thought it's a good time to kind of check in on where we are today with marketing, you know, post-pandemic, and the new way that people are communicating and the way they're taking information in. And the real kind of heart of the topic is the new Agile Marketing Mindset, which is you have to be a bit faster moving because we're moving into kind of very uncertain times. So it's much harder now to plan, you know, if you're going to be at an exhibition next quarter, or you know, how to run your TV ads, because different things are happening all over the place. And so I think we want to have that discussion with Dave and our amazing marketing panel here, or a panel. As every week I've got Sharina, Abigail, Paul, and Julie, and they're going to be helping me grill Dave on all the secrets of marketing and creative that we need to know about 2022 and beyond. So before we jump in, though, again, we're here, like I said, we're here every week. We have an incredible panel of business leaders, entrepreneurs, and experts every time. And we have, like I said, a special guest who gives us insight on expertise. You can listen to all the previous episodes, and you will be able to listen to this one on our YouTube channel. All the information is available on the link tree on my Instagram. So if you plug through myself and my Instagram, you'll be able to find all the links to previous episodes, as well as my 2 series of podcasts, Other Side of the Business Card, which was the recent one that I finished the season 2 this year, at the beginning of the year, and then before that, Between the Lines with Haig. And all of them have one thing in common, which is really most of the work we do as a management consulting firm as well is helping leaders think differently and really manage uncertainty as they move forward in these very kind of crazy times. So over to Dave, who is founder and CEO of An Original Jones. Dave is a digital art director and has first-hand experience working with both B2C and B2B companies, as well as agencies. He's worked on some fantastic brand campaigns and marketing communication strategies, and we're so excited to have him in the room. So again, we're going to talk about the role of creative director and how it's changing, the marketing mix of 2022, and the importance of having an agile marketing mindset. So you'll have a chance also to come up and ask questions. So I'm going to keep you to myself first, Dave. I'm going to monopolize you for the first few questions, then open up to the stage. We'll get to about halfway point, and then we'll take questions from the audience. So Dave, welcome.
Thank you, Haig.
We've prepped Dave by pumping him up with lots of sushi and miso soup, so that he won't run out of energy during this 60-minute power hour.
And I won't be able to run away because I'm so full.
Exactly. So Dave, why don't you tell us a little about your background? Was this creative thing something from the age of 2 on, or was it something you went into because you hated everything else? So tell us how you started out.
I think you're more accurate with from the age of about 6. I used to line up all my cars in straight lines and make patterns. Not the obvious thing for a little boy to do, but it sort of pleased me, and I kind of liked arranging the colours in so-so order. To finally find a job that allowed me to arrange things in similar patterns and get paid for it, well, it's a dream come true. It wasn't all sort of easy right from the get-go, though, because in the 1980s, when there was something called a recession, I found myself desperately trying to get into a business that I knew very little about. I'd been told that an advertising agency would be the thing to sort of look for, and I was luckily put in contact with an advertising agency, which was one of the biggest outside London. It was right on my doorstep, and I went in there as a YTS. Now, the brilliant thing about the YTS then was you got paid £15 a week. But in exchange for that, you met lots of people who knew what they were doing and were prepared to give you the time of day and to show you how and what they did all day. After the sort of 6 months, I think it was, that I was in the YTS scheme, the business decided that I could stay because I'd proved myself to be quite useful, basically emptying the bin,
right,
cleaning water pots, etc.
So, and then what did you find? I guess starting out there, it'll be interesting to see what people, see in marketing now with new jobs, because now it's all digital, and I guess there wasn't that much digital, right? Except maybe your watch or your clock. So, what attracted you to kind of even stay in once you saw the first 6 months of working in an agency?
Well, I was in something called a studio, and there were guys there that had many, many different skills. Interestingly, the same can be said about today's requirements, except the skill sets have completely changed. No longer do you have people with sort of airbrush techniques and people sort of wielding tubes of glue. Now it's all SEO, it's all platform, it's all working out what we're going to do to attract attention in a digital way, and that can be many and varied. And it's all, every creative director needs to fully understand, not completely, because that's what you build a great team for, what each one of these assets can deliver, and you need to sort of wield them to make an interesting campaign.
So I want to just jump into the creative director role, and I'm interested now to see how that's changed over the 2 or 3 decades, I guess, as you've been working. Has a digital piece made a difference in terms of how you as a creative look at a campaign?
Well, before a little bit of prep for this, I went and sort of looked at jobs for creative directors now. And if I compare that for the jobs that I've gone for in the last years, they still want great leadership. Leadership is absolutely the number one skill. You have to be pretty good at managing your people. You have to be pretty good at understanding the kind of people and the kind of skill sets that you need in your team. So to answer your question, it's not so much changed radically as what's expected of you. It's the subject matter that has changed, and that a modern day digital creative director needs to fully understand, well, the vast array of sort of, let's call them weapons that you have at your disposal to make interesting communications.
Great. In terms of the way that marketing dollars are spent now and the way people are brought in, has that changed? Obviously, before people had very large marketing departments of their own. How have you seen that change? Are people outsourcing more or insourcing more? And then what are the risks of both?
Over the years, I think I've seen agencies, and I've always sort of been on that side of the fence, where maybe the department needs to shrink, and maybe we need to sort of lose a few people. And of course, when that happens, you still need those very same skill sets, hopefully not the following week, but maybe the following month. So freelance has always played a very vital role in supporting agencies. It's always changing, and agencies have been sort of integrated with the way that they sort of position themselves. They've always been there and said that they're sort of like the extra extension to a marketing department that's one of their clients. That kind of thing never changes. But what does change, and what has changed drastically, is the way that tech has played an absolute vital role. And now, rather than sort of some of the old skills that I mentioned previously, you really do have like 3D manipulators, you have video experts, you have people who can piece animations together, and that is what's required. And it needs to be turned around really quite quickly, because we just seem to have got faster and faster at producing the products and the services that the clients that certainly I've worked for have wanted. I mean, there was once upon a time you could go down the pub at lunchtime, come back with a couple of beers.
Yeah.
Not so much these days.
Yeah, well, those days are certainly quite rare now. So very interesting. I've got one last question I'm going to open up to the panel. And when I do open up the panel, just flash your mics and I'll try and get to everybody in order. But during, again, so my consultancy is over 20 years and we spend many, many years working also in the marketing arena. So I myself am more at the strategy level, but I've being kind of privy to gate crash a lot of different projects that we've done with many different clients. And I know one of the most exciting ones was that we supported Toyota, or some part of my team supported Toyota with the Super Bowl when they used the Muppets. And that was obviously pretty fantastic for the team members involved. And then they went to Disney and they got to meet the creators and just, apparently these things are just amazing the way that it's all kind of structured, and it's probably confidential too, so I won't give a lot away. But Muppets aside, what's one of your favorite kind of projects or campaigns you've done? And this could be either because you yourself came up with a brilliant idea, which happens to me once every 27 years, or just the client just was doing something really cool that you could jump on the bandwagon?
I think the one that springs to mind is that the client who became a very good friend. We quickly sort of built a trust level. Now, that trust allows me to be sort of extra creative and a little bit daring, I guess. And at the same time, if he trusts me and I trust him, I know that he's not going to sort of slash the budget in half. But when it comes to the one of the sort of high points, I'd say that being able to actually write a play, and those two companies together, and for the assembled audience to stand at the end of the play, and we'd sort of hired actors from The Bill. I don't know if any of you remember The Bill, but it was a police drama.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Those guys sort of reenacted the guy in his office talking about how he was going to purchase this business. Now it was set 10 years previously, where he was dreaming about purchasing the business, and then it flipped to the 10 years post after he'd purchased the business. It was quite an interesting play. When I say a play, that's what it felt like. And of course, when I went with the concept to the client, he said, you've got to be joking. I don't want to play. I just want to tell people what the merge is about. I just said, you just got to make it interesting. And he went with it. And so that was really rewarding. And then from then on, he allowed me to plaster the business that he worked in, the corridors there when they were recruiting people. We wanted to really hit people in the eye to sort of give them a reward for finding people that they could hire. We welded about 5,000 £1 coins to the corridor floor, and that was quite interesting. We had to have a security guard overnight to guard it as well, in case somebody wanted to sort of hack up a bit. And he also let me completely take over an underground station in Vienna for an event that we'd been doing all the creative for, and he just allowed us to then expand that into an event, taking us into the hall where they were exhibiting. The watchword there is trust. If you can get the trust of a client, then you're halfway there.
Yeah, the play idea for M&A integration, I think that's such a great way to present the story. And was it also kind of a fun take, or was it pretty serious?
It was a little bit light-hearted. The main guy, as I said, he was pretending to play golf in his office, pitching the ball into a little jam jar, etc. He was wearing a Hawaiian shirt, which I don't suppose too many executives wear an Hawaiian shirt, but I just remember the standing ovation that everybody sort of gave it after the sort of the 10 or 15 minutes that it played out on the stage. It was really gratifying and quite rewarding.
Brilliant. I would like to welcome Kev, who's joined us, who's usually the main mod. Are you here, Kev, in main mod capacity?
Hi,
curiosity capacity?
Sorry, mate. I apologise sincerely. I was actually on the phone. It was quite a long conversation with Dubai.
Oh.
So I was pleased that I did the conversation, but they just don't get off the phone. They keep asking, and I'm like, I've got to get off. I've got to go. So finally, I got off. So I apologise, but I'm here and I'm ready to mod if you need me, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna do some questions now, and then I'll probably come to you at half time just to reset the room. So, who wants to go first with the questions? Abigail, can I come over to you?
Yes, please. Oh my goodness. I am so excited to hear all of this content, Dave. You are indulging my marketing mindset. I have a background in marketing. Also, I worked in investment management, asset management and hedge funds. So I guess we're talking about the mindset of an agile marketer these days. And I was on the client side. So we've got client side and agency side. And I know what it was like 10 years ago. But you have a more recent experience. So what would you say is the skill set of an agile marketer, maybe on the client side and on the agency side in this day and age? And is it the same?
I think having a great insight, when you're the client and you realise that you need things to change from a marketing perspective, then you usually go out to what you perceive to be the professionals who can help you. Now, agencies have changed dramatically with the way that they start the process. So they will do their audits, their due diligence on the problem, if you like. So I think it's the speed of response. It's having the depth to give conceptual sort of ideas to initially kick the process off. But at the same sort of time, it has to be affordable from a client point of view. They will have done their numbers. They know what they want to spend on any sort of marketing campaign going forward. And these days, there are things that clients need to be seen to be doing. Certainly from a sustainable point of view, if a company's not doing the right and proper thing these days, it can soon be found out by a very, very savvy marketing audience. And it is down to sort of certainly the agencies and the creative people and the account handling people to actually acknowledge what is at stake and give the ideas in response to the problem. They have to address all of those things.
Amazing. So I have a follow-up question just on the back of that then. Would you say that the role of ESG has become more important in your pitching, in your briefing from a client point of view then? That so no longer can it just be, oh, we'll get a load of flyers and throw them out of here and put it that way. It's much more like you have to think about the environment and the consequences and what will happen for the organisation and the longevity of that marketing strategy.
You've only got to look at what you see going off on television on a sort of a nightly basis, where there are so many more brands now. As I said, they need to be honest, and I think their development departments are actually almost catching up with what the market demands. We all want sustainable products. If you think about the electric cars that we're sort of being sort of pushed towards, I think many more of us would actually pick up the electric car if we had the belief in the infrastructure. So I think in the next couple of years there's going to be an awful lot of people ploughing an awful lot of money into that, and people will also need to sort of just acknowledge that there is an element of truth within the marketing and advertising that they put out there that people expect. They don't really want to be sort of shammed or fooled into sort of strange products and services. They want honesty, and I think you're going to see that in the next sort of, at least kick on a little bit more in the next coming years.
Fantastic. I saw some creative the other day actually on the Underground that really feeds into what you're saying there, that they were saying that phones that are refurbished were saving a certain number of litres of water. And I just think that the way that people are actually relating it to things that the consumer actually cares about. So get your phone refurbished and save water is a really interesting narrative for the sort of marketing in this day and age.
Well, I think the government as well are sort of making it sort of more sort of that any product that you launch, it has to be fully repairable these days, which is no bad thing. And we've seen fast fashion I think they're going to sort of clamp down on fast fashion items and things like that. And that's what I mean by brands having to play their part. They need to come up with products that can be repaired, because we don't have infinite material to just waste on this planet that we live on. We just must respect that. And it's a good job that I think more and more brands are actually honest with the people that they want to sell to.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, on the topic of sustainability, again, when I lived in the US, I remember the Walmarts and the Costco's were so cheap for kids' plastic toys, when I had kids. And you get these huge things and they're really very cheap. And so one of the things I would try and do is scrounge them from people, not just to save the money, but just, like a huge kitchen set all in plastic. It's like, it can probably be passed on, especially some of those plastics go on for 30 years, But I think one of the most interesting sustainability presentations I heard was from Walmart. It was at the, I think, American Marketing Association annual meeting in Chicago, and there were like, I don't know, 1,000 people. But Walmart gave a presentation, and listen to this, it was after 5 years of doing work on sustainability. So rather than the usual lipstick on the pig, like we're going to do all this stuff, for 5 years they had done a study, and they had got to a net zero on all their TV ads. That the TV ads that they ran, they would recycle everything they used. So if they had a room with furniture and curtains, they would give it to homes for battered wives, or they'd pass everything on so that there would be zero waste from any prop they've used. And they would do the same with the food. They would have a zero waste site. And I thought it was super impressive. And what was impressive is they didn't say they were going to do it. They did it and gave the results, like you say, of what they've saved in 5 years and how much they've contributed to all these homes and things with products. So I thought that was really great. So do we have another question ready? Or if not, I'll ask Kev to reset the room. So Kev, do you want to reset the room? As no one's flashing.
Absolutely, yeah, not a problem at all. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Haig Business Winners. I'm Kev Hawkim. Today, we're talking about the new Agile Marketing Mindset. Our special guest, Dave Jones, who's talking everything to do with creative art, director of designer and videographer. And he also mentioned the Bill, which happens to be one of my closest friends from the Bill as well, which I'll mention shortly. But in the meantime, big hello to our moderators here today. Sharina, as always, a social media goddess. We've got Abigail, time management goddess. We've got Paul. Wouldn't say he's a goddess, I'll be honest with you, but on this occasion, he's there as well in the background. And of course, Paul is one of our business leaders who is on every single week. Plus, we have Melissa, beautiful Melissa, who is just divine, and another goddess. Julie, another goddess, who's a fantastic financial performance coach as well. So, and I forgot to mention, actually, Melissa is a CEO and founder of Modern Mind Group as well. And then finally, me on the bottom there with the purple background, the owner of Jonglers. So big hello to Stefan. Cecile, hello, my darling. Thank you for joining us here at Haig's Business Winners. If you're not following the room, please go above Sharina's head. It says Haig's Business Winners with a little greenhouse. Can you click on that and do follow us and do share it with all your friends and followers? So today we're talking everything about creative art. Director, designer and videographer Dave Jones is sharing his insights. So if you do have a question, please do come up onto the stage. We do want to hear from you. We don't just want the moderators to ask questions. We want people from the audience to ask. If you are in the audience, by the way, please press that plus button and bring a load of people into this room. It would be great to share these insights, as Haig does this every single week. And of course, the main man himself, which is in the turquoise background, that's Haig Armaganium. He's also got a wonderful podcast. You've got to listen to it. It's on Apple and it's also on Spotify, The Other Side of the Business Card. So do check that out. In the meantime, I'm going to pass you back over to Haig. Haig, it's your turn, mate. Looking forward to seeing you again very soon, buddy.
Yeah, thanks, Kev. Kev's a true fan. He's listened to my podcast at least about 40 times per episode, which is amazing.
400.
Thank you, Kev. That's right, and he can imitate my voice if needed. So sometimes it's not even me; it's him talking. But Kev, I did see. I went to the Paddington WeWork. Next to the barista was what you call one of those signs about the comedy nights, Jonglers comedy nights that you're doing for WeWork. So I saw that advertised, and I took a photo, which I need to send you.
Yeah, so we did a collaboration with WeWorks to do 15 of their private we work comedy nights, which we're doing, and in the hope that we will then get residencies in at least 48 of their venues around the country, which is what we're doing right now. The shows have been absolutely successful. Last night we had Edinburgh, apologies. The night before that we had Manchester, and tonight we've got Dublin. So it's going really, really well. Very exciting times, and looking forward to doing many, many more with the WeWork product. So that's just one of the comedy nights that we've got in play at the moment.
Yeah, well, the signage was great, and it was just by the Bristol kind of station. So it was really, and the WeWork these days, I use a few of them on and off for meetings. So it was just absolutely jammed. So from the UK perspective, looks like things are going back to normal, at least in terms of packing out the workspaces. So I want to see if there's any other questions. If not, I've got a bunch of questions here for you, Dave. Julie's flashing, Paul's flashing. So Julie first. How are you, Julie? Welcome.
Hi, Haig. Hi, everybody. Thank you. I'm going to ask a question, so please put me back in my box if I've completely misconstrued, because I'm an accountant and marketing and things like that are not my strong suit. But I have delivered branding and marketing workshops to new startup businesses. So they're very early on in the game, just to help them with their concepts. And some of the examples, case studies I've actually cited were things like rebranding of, when I googled it, it was like what was the Tropicana orange juice and Gap rebranding, where they went completely pear-shaped and they had to reverse them within record time. At what point is a marketing campaign or a marketing agency saying, actually, it's not about the marketing campaign being ineffective, it's actually the brand being ineffective? I mean, what's the crossover point at that, Dave? I don't know whether I'm asking a relevant question or not.
What's the crossover point? Are you suggesting that the client is acknowledging that they're falling short of putting a product or service into the market, and they know it? Is that what you're saying?
I suppose if a business says, we are not fulfilling our purpose or sales or whatever, is it about a marketing campaign not being effective, or is it about the fact that our brand is not working for us and we need a rebrand? What would the advice be to, say, a corporate director that came to you with that conundrum?
I think the first place that a lot of brands that realise they've got some difficulty on their hands, if they've gone out to the market, or if somebody they've got who represents their brand has done something that sort of doesn't align with the brand and it's sort of dragging it down, so to speak, is they will reach for their sort of PR agency, and the PR agency is given a brief to fight the fire and sort things out, to just buy a little bit more time. You will be surprised just how quickly a brand can bounce back, and it might bounce back with a bit more of a dull type message, but it will fill the gap because they've sort of paid for slots, etc. It's all about speed of turnaround and hopefully less damage incurred to the brand if that's what is on the table or what is trying to be fixed. If it's just simply, look, this isn't selling as any widgets that we want to do, or the service that we're offering simply isn't sort of striking a chord with the buyers, then it really is down to the actual business to come up with something. Now, strategy plays a massive role in making sure that you've got it right before you go to market. Sometimes you see things that are sort of put out there, and I've got sort of one for you, which always makes me sort of scratch my head a little bit. You know that dishwasher tablets are in the supermarket, and right now I think it's Unilever are actually pushing the fact that dishwasher tablets help save water. I'd really like to know how much water it saves, because on the other hand, I think a dishwasher tablet is one of the most expensive things you can buy in a supermarket. So I guess if I'm taking it from a consumer point of view, I'm asking questions, and I'm not the only one who's asking questions of any product, and it will soon feed back to a client that's running something, a service, a product that they have in their lineup. It will soon get back to them in the form of those sales, and it is down to them to react. And the other thing that brings them to an absolute crashing halt is when people go to the ASA and make a complaint, or even question that, is that product doing everything that you say it should do?
Does that answer your question, Julie?
Yeah, I was thinking about, for example, Tropicana rebranded their packaging and stuff like that, and it caused a lack of authentication with their product when they actually came to market. And so that as a rebrand became a complete failure because they were trying to reboost their sales. I think maybe their sales are flagging slightly or something like that, and they just wanted to give it an extra a boost. But it failed completely on that basis. So was it a case of a poor branding, or was it poor branding to begin with that they thought they needed a rebrand, or was it the fact that their marketing campaigns prior to the rebrand were not being effective? So that was the sort of question. At what point you say, okay, my marketing is not being effective, I'm going to go for a rebrand in order to boost my sales?
Yeah, the marketing may well have been at fault, but also I'd say that they have to look at themselves, and they go through several rounds of test, market researching, focus groups, and if they've got any kind of show up in there that the designs aren't liked, they're not going to have standout within the supermarket lineup against the competitors. That's one issue. So they might have jumped the gun and sort of gone, well, we like it, but usually the customer is always right, and they will vote with their pennies. If they don't like what they see, or it does no longer stands out, then they won't buy it. Then the other point is what sort of strategic USP, a standout point about that particular drink. It's a very competitive market out there. If you do not have something that makes a difference, then usually people sort of cotton on and go, well, that's just another bland drink. It might taste okay, but actually it might never get to that point because the customer won't pick it up.
Yeah, because the Tropicana one was the fact that it was like, everyone associated it with a straw in the orange, and they took that image away and put a very generic glass of orange juice on the cover. So I think the branding agency kind of got it wrong on that basis because they didn't do their market research by the sounds of things from what you're
Well,
saying.
there's usually sort of a specialist packaging business that that they have the background and the sort of skill sets to actually work with the client, and then it sort of moves on. Once that's been nailed and everybody's happy with the look and feel of the product or the packaging, then it moves on to the marketing sort of the agency to actually go and push it and sort of propel it with the most suitable message. These days, people want to know that they're either doing good or the packaging can be recycled fully. The amount of coffee cups that you see that you can't recycle the lid, but you can the actual body part of the cup. It's not really good enough. We're in 2022. I think everybody that makes a product should really be able to stand up and basically be proud of it.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Dave.
Yeah,
No problem.
That's a brilliant question. I think you mentioned the word strategy, and that's so what I also heard Julie was saying, which is the most complex thing, is what if your baby's ugly? So, for example, if your product's not good and you go into marketing, at what point can you have that discussion with the marketing executive team to say, well, what you've launched isn't really as good as you think, and maybe the focus groups didn't work, or maybe they didn't do enough work on it. But it's hard again to blame the executive team versus, say, the agency or the campaign.
Yeah, many years ago, the agency that I worked for, we were commissioned to try and bring something called corn dogs from the States over to the UK. So we got really excited as a creative team because we were sent to New York to make our fancy film, which we duly did. And it just really was people in America eating a corn dog. If you don't know what a corn dog is, it's basically a sausage wrapped in some kind of batter thing. The marketing guy, the marketing director of the client said it was akin to a drug, shall we say. It will be so powerful when people eat this for their tea, their dinner, then they'll just want more. And you know what? If there's one product I look back and think, wow, that really bombed. It really bombed because when you tasted them, and I can say it now because I don't think you'll find them on the shelves anymore, it was horrible. It doesn't take long for the actual buying public to understand what it is they're being sold, which is price inflated. So it wasn't worth the money and it tasted rubbish, and it was just basically an American fad that still goes off in America and everybody loves over there, but nobody over here will ever like because it's just not very nice.
Oh my goodness. Sorry, I just have to chip in there because that really reminds me, like, we're so much influenced by what we see in the movies when it comes to marketing and product placement and all of this. So I remember watching movies as a kid and seeing them eating Twinkies.
Twinkies.
And obviously you can't buy a Twinkie in the UK, but when I went to America and I went to a local shop and I walked in, I said, "Hi, I'm from the UK. Have you got any Twinkies?" First of all, they were like, "Okay, you're kind of strange." Second of all, I ate the Twinkie and it tasted disgusting. And so I think so many of these things are location specific, and yes, they may be, once you've eaten it, you'll love it, but it really depends on your palate and your country. And I think probably one of the few products that is accessible around the world and pretty much tastes the same.
No, absolutely. I think the corn dog is a good example. I'm hoping Kurt, who is American, who's visiting his country, isn't scolding us for maybe it's his favorite food. So we apologize, Kurt, if you're a Twinkie or corn dog fan, or for any other Americans for that reason. I'm going to go over to Paul before we get deep into food, which is a subject that I love, but unfortunately we never talk about it on this program. Paul, what's your question? And welcome.
I guess my question for you, Dave, is really around, this is sort of my theme and thing. Marketing has become much more analytical, I think, over time. The ability to get very quick feedback on campaigns, what you're doing, particularly in the digital world, is there. And I think also the digital world communicates things very quickly that can completely change the way that you're thinking about presenting something. An example of that, I think, was when Donald Trump said, "Inject yourself with Clorox." The whole Clorox marketing and PR machine had to go into overdrive to make very clear that's not a good idea, right? And obviously that was an event out of their control. But within all of that, the creative bit is still massively important, in that you're trying to create an emotion, you're trying to create an awareness and an action from people when they respond to whatever it is that you're putting in front of them. So I'm really interested in sort of your perspective of how that has really changed over the last 5 years, or if it hasn't changed, the sort of balance between really compelling creative material that excites people and the whole analytical piece about that to make sure that people see that material in the first place.
Well, now, of course, we rely on sort of banks of data to reveal just how well our messaging is performing. So based on that, I think if you're ever doing sort of repeat campaigns or building on a campaign that you've already put out to market, it's easier to flex up or down your messaging based on your strategy that you're trying to sort of work with and put out there. I mean, when a strategy is sort of born, you need lots of people to buy into it. So from a creative point of view, you need your account guys to buy into it, and the account guys need the client to buy into it. But it all does stand and fall on how it performs. And when you sort of go back sort of 5-10 years ago, I mean, although we had data, it's getting better and better at revealing what works, why it's working, where people are watching it, what page of the website they're looking at, what's sort of striking a tone with people. So it has become much more of a science than it ever was. Years ago, I used to sort of work on 48 sheet posters. We'd have great fun putting them together. They'd get pasted on the billboard, and then the client would go, "Yeah, but we don't know how many people have looked at it, and we don't know why they're not buying whatever that product is." Well, now it is much more scientific, and that's why you see very few brands actually venturing onto 48 sheet posters. They think they're really expensive and don't get much in return, where they would much rather go super granular and put their messaging and products out into places and under the noses of people that they know are going to be looking at them on their phones, on their laptops. Of course, you can sort of do direct TV as well, so you can actually target your sort of commercials, certainly via sort of Sky, etc. It is all so sort of scientific now. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, one quick follow-up. Sorry, one quick follow-up. Am I right thinking that you can go down to postcode level now, pretty much?
You And to be honest, I think it goes from postcode to almost next door neighbour. So I can be watching the TV of my choice in my house and actually receiving commercials that are focused on my buying habits because that data exists, and the next door neighbour can be receiving something completely different, as long as, of course, we're all watching Sky.
Okay, thanks.
Great stuff. I've got a couple more questions, but I think Melissa was flashing. Melissa?
Quick question from me. What are your thoughts on demand gen versus lead gen? As in lead generation, getting the email addresses, names, sending automated emails, or contacting, nurturing your lists, versus doing a lot of content organically to get demand generation, people just reaching out to you, asking for your services, versus actually generating leads.
Well, it all comes down to your data. I mean, one follows the other one. So lead generation, I think you're going to get there sort of faster because you're following a sort of a breadcrumb trail of possible hots to go, aren't you? Sort of warm people who actually want to buy in, where the other route, the organic growth, is slower and you're sort of distilling what you're finding out all the time. Occasionally those two subsets of data will cross over and they'll need to be cleaned, etc. But lead generation is possibly a little bit more exciting to work on initially if you're a creative.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? If not, I wanted to just get into marketing agility and this whole agile mindset in terms of looking at a department today. And it could be a mid-sized company, it could be like a division of it could be a large-scale company. What do you think make up that they actually have an agile mindset? And I heard some examples of this at another meeting I was at, which I'll share afterwards. But I'm just interested. What are 2 to 3 kind of factors that you think makes them agile in terms of the working on a launch or a campaign they're putting together, or what kind of makes that department, very agile in terms of being able to move as things change in the future?
About 5 or going back a bit more than that years ago, the buzzword was sort of integrated agencies. An integrated description was an agency that had skill sets within the agency that it could call upon to actually match up to what their clients required when it came to selling products. That has changed. So when you have companies like Accenture, who are, let's call it more the science side of what they understand the market far better than probably a lot of marketing agencies, they went out and bought themselves a marketing agency. So they now have at their disposal all those marketing skills and the science skills, the networking skills, the strategic skills, all in one place. I can only see that happening more and more as time goes on, where the really big players decide to bolt on a piece of their jigsaw that they think can get them more clients and basically a bigger slice of the market.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we saw that about 20 years ago in training, and actually, what the company that acquired us in the US is big into what they call carve outsourcing, which is again carving out the training pieces of companies, because there is so much technology now involved in executing those work processes that it's getting harder and harder for, say, an OEM or one client to master all the technologies you need. And I think the same thing has now happened with marketing. And so in some cases, again, to stay on top of all these marketing tools and be able to analyze them is getting so complicated. Even if you've got a big agency working with you, the internal movement of all your data is just so complex. And your data is probably the most important part of the business. So in some cases, there's a conflict to outsource that to the same agency, because at that point you lose complete control of the return on investment that you're making through your agency campaign. So so a lot of companies are looking to outsource what some of their marketing pieces that involves all the dashboards and the control of the data that they're working with, and the ability to measure campaigns. So maybe that's where Accenture is coming from, and maybe this is going to be a trend. We'll wait and see. So any other questions right now? I was going to say the example I've got is I can't remember the company name now, but one company that was actually closing its books every quarter versus every year because of the speed of everything that's moving. I mean, you can plan for a year, like in the old days, that I'm going to do these exhibitions, I'm going to build these booths. But we've seen from the bumpy previous, 2-3 years that, maybe that isn't the future. And I was having a discussion around this with somebody. And like I said, I can't remember the company, but there was a company who had radically made the decision to close their books every quarter, like you would every year, which meant they could not, in many cases, it was rare they would give any agency a contract more than 3 months. And probably post-COVID, you've got some level of power there where you would maybe get away with it. It will have to wait to be seen whether those time cycles have changed enough where that may be an accepted measure of working. So I don't know what you think about that.
Well, I think it's continually changing, Haig. You'll always get businesses that think that they can sort of have a different kind of relationship with any sort of external supplier. If that external supplier is an outdated agency, then they will soon move for an agency that they are more aligned with. I guess the power has always been with clients who can move their business from one agency to another. The best work, however, are the agency and the client that actually work together. And that will be forever so because they trust each other.
Yeah, we're back to that brilliant word, trust. So I like that. I did have a question here about the biggest flop that you have seen, but I think you already mentioned one. I don't know if you have another, but I was thinking it'd be nice to close out with something a bit of a light-hearted, other campaigns that haven't worked out over the years.
That I've personally been involved with?
Well, you don't have to make it personal. You could always say it was a friend was the creative director. It's up to you.
I can't actually think of one that is the biggest flop. That every job you take on has what I call a number of hurdles before it. So when it starts off as a scribble, and let's say I've been working with a copywriter and the account guy, it's to a point where you think it's got legs and you think it is worth actually pitching to the client. And they come in various shapes and sizes. One that I fondly remember was an internal communication piece that we wanted to send out as a piece of direct mail that in the end was cost the agency 3p. And that's because we thought, wouldn't it be a brilliant idea if we could sort of put a piece of direct mail within an envelope, damage the envelope, send it through the postal system, get the post office to actually intercept this, mend it with all their tape, and eventually it would find its way to the person we were sending it to, and they would then come back to us and go, but my piece of DM is missing. Well, it was all basically preconceived because the DM never was. It was just a little message that said, if your booklet on how to choose an award-winning direct marketing agency is missing, please call this number. So rather than a flop, I kind of look at more the challenge of delivering a piece of communication that's going to cut through, that's a little bit cheeky, it's a little bit naughty. Certainly the post office won't thank me for saying it, but we thought we were very smart.
And do you know if they got any business out of that? Or?
Yeah, because I worked for the agency, and yes, we did. We had we converted 2 or 3 clients from that piece of work.
Okay, good. So we're perfectly on time to be out of time. So Dave, I want to thank you.
Thank you, Haig.
For joining us. I'm going to ask Kev to wrap the room, and I'm going to do the the final close. So Kev, do you want to just say some last comments? And I've got my link up to the other side of the business card as well. So if people want to jump into that podcast after this because they have nothing else to do, which is often the case after lunch, they can listen into one of the podcasts. So Kev.
Absolutely, Haig, and a nice little plug there for your other side of the business card, which I have to say, by the way, is fantastic. Season 2 is just a genius podcast and some great guests on there. But once again, welcome to Haig's Business Winners. We're now about to close the room. We do this every single Thursday at 1:00, and today we were talking about the new Agile Marketing Mindset. We've got some special guests every single week that come on, and we've got some great moderators. This week we have Shireen, we have Abigail, Paul, Melissa, Julie, myself, and Shay, who's in the room as well. And thank you to everyone who keeps popping in and out of the room, including Stefan, Kurt, and Cecil. Thank you for coming in and joining us in the room. As Haig said, we do have a podcast. It is available on Spotify and Apple. Please do go and listen to it. It is absolutely fantastic. And every single podcast that he's done and everyone is interviewed has been wonderful. So once again, this is Haig's Business Winners. Haig, I'm going to pass it back over to you. Let's meet up again next week at 1 p.m. and let's get this information out there. And of course, if you're not following Haig on Instagram or on his LinkedIn, please do so because all the information's on there and there's some great things you can tap into, particularly in entrepreneurial business. In the meantime, I'm Kev Orkin. I've got an event tonight. If any of you are free, it is at the LIT in Clapham Junction, Clapham, and it's a wonderful event tonight. And we're going to be raising money for a fantastic Clubhouse friend of ours called David Burgess, who has Wilson's disease. And he's identified it very quickly, which means he's got a great chance to live. And we're going to raise money for him tonight. So there's going to be 15 comedians doing stand-up tonight at the LIT. If you're free or if you know anyone that is, send it out to them. In the meantime, Haig, thank you very much for doing another great plug here and another great show. I'll pass it back over to you. Take care and look after yourselves, each and every one of you. God bless. Good night.
Thank you, Kev. And once again, I want to just thank the moderators and the team. I just pretty much try and feed the guests before we bring them here, walk them here, eat lots of sushi, and then we just get fired up. But thank you for all the moderators. Thank you for Sharina for putting all this stuff on. Abigail, Paul, Melissa, Kev, Julie, Shay. People in the audience obviously are always fantastic. Nice to see Kurt and Stefan and Cecil here today as well. And again, time to say a big thank you, Dave Jones. Very original Jones, always original, our special guest on Haig's Business Winners. We'll have a summary of this session available on Instagram in easy-to-read form and a more intellectual form on LinkedIn pages where we can write a lot more. So make sure you take a look at that. Again, you can listen to this on our YouTube channel. Everything's on the link tree. Dave, any last words of wisdom for us?
I'm not a rock star.
Okay, so Dave the Rockstar is a modest person. That's the conclusion of today. But again, thanks again, everybody. Have a great, safe week. Take care, and see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this session of Haig's Business Winners Club. Hit the subscribe button to stay updated with all the latest insightful business conversations from industry experts, leaders, and entrepreneurs.